is just about done, just from stretching like that.
Awesome. Well, I feel like it's for like even urinary like incontinence and stuff.
This is light years ahead if you're into Star
I
Trek.
could hardly walk. I was limping, and I knew I needed to get it back in shape. I'm like 99% better than I was. When I leave here, I feel like a new woman.
This is so great, and what an opportunity and remarkable one for the dance community. But I had a glute that went into an inner quad issue that affected my knee, and you were like, in just a matter of no time, were able to give me relief in the knee, more stabilization in it, and strengthen it to where I'm able to start getting back to dancing and not feeling that while I'm doing it. It gives me the strength to be able to do that. And that's what's so amazing about your unique talent and expertise, and plus where you're exploring the body fascia and how it moves and how it works with us as dancers. And it doesn't mean just for competitive dancers like you and I, but also for those who perform and even social dancers.
The pain goes really deep and it's like I can't reach it. But the techniques, the stretching techniques that you've shown me really go deep and they hit that pain. I could feel that stretch, that really deep stretch. And like I was saying, it hurt so good. It hurt so good. I can use your techniques while I'm working out, to get a bigger bang for my buck, for my time.
Workout and stabilizing and balance for people, I think that's much needed. It's an interesting idea, especially for people who want to get more balanced and stable prior to the workout. I mean, this is a workout in itself, but maybe doing a few reps of these and then trying to do other things, or maybe just having this as your workout at home.
Because I can go in there and lift weights and do this and do that, but I think it's only doing like a surface, an outer aesthetic type of change, because it wasn't helping. As a matter of fact, it was probably putting more tension and more stress on my injury.
When I'm just doing a workout at home, lifting weights or doing squats, these motions, I'm always thinking like, bigger muscles, not getting bigger muscles, but thinking of working the bigger muscles. These really just naturally made me think of all the little things inside of our body that we're using every day that don't really think about. Like, that's what these did for me. Like, it made me feel.
Hello. How is everybody doing today? I'm so excited to be on this live right now. I'm still figuring out new technologies and playing with some different stuff. So let me scroll back here in my PowerPoint slide. And I'm Dr. Rena McCullough, physical therapist and ballroom dancer, and I just wanted to say thank you for being with me. So I have a lot to say. I want to go fairly fast, so if you're ready, just buckle up and let's get started. So I am proud of you guys for taking the effort to invest in you, which is so important because as dancers, we invest in ourselves by learning dance, but we actually have to make much more additional investment to make sure we take care of our best asset, which is our bodies, as we dance and as we continue to take care of our bodies so we can dance. So I'm proud of everybody. And the goal of this is to meet your highest potential on the dance floor by feeling activated from within. So the objective today is really to give you guys a taste and a sample of dance body anatomy. So it's not just learning anatomy, it's not just learning dance, it's not just learning movement or PT, it's a sample of it all combined in a new and unique way that trains connectivity within your body. And so we're looking at how to increase your dance quality, relieving general aches and pains while you do so, understanding simple new science, and anatomy basics, but applied to dance. So we're going to be seeing how it's actually the same and different. So it's not going to be your traditional anatomy. And so just a disclaimer, this is not a physical therapy program. This is general exercise and injury prevention wellness. And if you have an active injury, please consult a provider near you. I love this quote because this sums up what my goal in life, the impact that I'm trying to make in the community or with my work in the world. And it's when you come across something that is profound, then you have to change yourself. When you come across something that is profound, then you have to change yourself. So it's essentially saying you can't deny it. You have reached a new truth, and now you have to follow that path and follow that truth. And that's how I feel about this work. So you might be, or you might have heard, so you might be someone looking to stretch, strengthen, activate, to continue your dance journey, to get better, faster, to understand your body, to move better, to feel more balanced and stable, to really experience your body from the inside. Or you could be looking for hacks to meet your dance goals faster, more effectively, decrease stiffness. So there's the stiffness and pain component, but there's also the activation and performance component. And so if you can, I'd love to know what you're working on. So 1 for more like the aches, pains, and stiffness in certain areas, if you could write them down in the comments. Number 2 for more of like dance hacks, goals, more effective within your body dancing, understanding. And then if you're working on both, write down a 3. And so things you might have heard, I hear a lot of my patients tell me, oh, I never thought that I'd be able to get over this injury. Practitioners have always told me I'm getting older and that's it, or that's arthritis and that's it, or that I for sure need surgery, which is not always the case. A lot of times, dance teachers, you might have heard, you're not going to beat your competition because you haven't been dancing as long as they have. All sorts of things that kind of tell us that we can't do something, or one path is the only way. And through my research, through my interactions with clients, through my own body, I've realized that's simply not true. So who are you and what are you working on? So I've been working with people that want to get better in their dancing, want to prevent injury, that are motivated, that fear not being able to dance for the rest of their lives. And, that I've heard, don't dance in heels, don't dance for over this many hours, you'll never be the same after surgery, or you won't ever be as good of a dancer because you started dancing as an adult, which is definitely presents a challenge, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So dance anatomy, what do I mean when I say dance anatomy? So it's a mixture of old science and new science. The old science is the obvious stuff. This structure is my shoulder, this is my rotator cuff, and, here's my serratus anterior, and here is my masseter with my mandible, and landmarks, muscles, movements, nerves, tendons, that's anatomy. But the new science of anatomy is fascia. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit today, but it's the fabric that's flowing through our body that holds our nervous system. And so we're adding on this component of dance. And one thing that I realized from learning dance versus learning simple anatomy, from going to get my doctorate to taking dance lessons and diving into what is it to be a dancer, to move your body in these ways and to train, I realized that dancers and anatomists and PTs and medical professional, we teach anatomy and learn anatomy differently. We do. And some of that makes sense, and then some of it, unfortunately, should be cross-applied, and we should actually be taking what's great from dance, taking what's great from anatomy, taking what's great from the new science, and taking what is great and makes sense from the old science. And so that is my work. That is what I've been working on. And what you'll see is that when we combine these, it's very powerful, because we can unlock more secrets to our body that not only help us with injury, but help make us a better dancer, which is amazing. So today's format, it's going to be listen, move, listen, move. And so today I have a lot of information, but I'm going to sprinkle in a series and a sample of how we can think about the chain reaction in our body through our dance anatomy. And so we have something called the hand to shoulder connection. This is what I call it. It addresses sliding of the shoulders on the rib cage, right? So those really complex dance movements and frames allows you to better understand, to move with intention, and to use your back muscles. So, you know, when people say those things, I never understood what they meant. So this is what we're addressing with this today. Allows you to train chain reactions from lead follow and styling your arms, making them more connected. Example, so I will talk to you about later, using your back muscles to move your arm and rib cage, but you can also use other muscles to activate them and a series of muscles. So we're going to talk about how to turn those on today and go through a really unique series. So the initial movement we're going to go through, I'm going to show you right here. What we're going to do is I'm going to expand me a little bit. Oh, here I am. So the initial movement we're going to go through is a lot of times dance teachers, and they're rightfully so, to turn on your back muscles, we will bring our arms out to the side, both arms up to our side, and our palms up. And we'll just kind of raise our arms up like this to the side, both arms, and rotate our palms under as much as we can, and really feel these muscles, which a lot of times anatomists, if I want to simplify it, will say your lower trapezius muscles. So we're activating those lower lats, the lower scapula, the down and back muscles, without jamming your shoulders down and back. We're testing and we're seeing, what is it to use our arms to go down and back? And I'm really stretching out, and then I'm just rotating them over to really feel that down and back. So this is the precursor motion, and we're just going to compare, and we're going to add on and make better what this feeling is, because I think it's great advice, but I think we can take it many steps further to go and learn so much more from what we're going to do today. So I want you guys, as I'm talking, I just want you to practice this, arms out, down and back, and just practice this awareness. When you get tired, lower your arms, your blood might be flowing out of them, just shake them out a little bit and continue to kind of practice this motion, okay? So I'm gonna lessen myself. There we go. So what we're gonna do here is, I want you to look here. I talked about the lower trapezius. This picture is highlighting all sections of the trap muscles. When people think about the trap muscles, they usually think about just this tense place at the top of our shoulders here, but actually they're like so deep, and there's so many parts to them that people don't even realize, all the way down to below where your bras sit if you're a woman, but all the way down, as you can see, to the bottom of the rib cage. So this is a really big muscle, and it's on the surface level. So I know we were talking about anatomy, so I wanted to show you this. But in reality, as dancers, we don't just want to activate these surface level traps, although these are the muscles that a lot of people know about. So I would call them buzzword muscles. And so you'll hear a lot of people say, you know, lower trapezius, your scapula, and that is true. It's not untrue, but there's so much more going on, and so much more that we want to try to get going on in there. So it's not wrong to describe it like this. It's not wrong to show it like this. It's how many of us are trained, and we're going to make this better today. So the mindset. So the three most detrimental mindsets of not being on board with this movement, not being on board with this change within your own body is, I've tried that before. I hear that a lot with physical therapy. People say, oh, I'm not going to see a physical therapist because I've tried physical therapy before. But the truth is they haven't tried therapy with me, or they haven't tried therapy, you know, with that person, you know. So all practitioners, just like dance teachers or doctors or lawyers, you have a standard set of things that they might do, but then you also have people that do completely different things and have their own methods and practice in a way that they have found most effective. So just because you've tried one person doesn't necessarily mean that, I'm gonna make myself a little bit bigger, you know, that you shouldn't try somebody else who's doing something different. The other thing is, this option looks the same. This other option looks the same. So sometimes people thinking that, something on a video or something that an aide or a tech or a trainer or somebody else can offer in a different way is exactly the same. Like, oh, I'll just get a massage. I hear that. Or, oh, I'll just get an adjustment. But when you sit down and look at it, it actually might not be the same. So you might need to kind of weigh out your options, which one you want, or, really go ahead and try that other thing because it might be different, and you just trying it is going to give you the opportunity to maybe make a huge difference in your life. The third detrimental mindset is I'm just getting old, which I'm guilty of course, and we all know the biological process is at play. But the thing is that I've seen and I've worked with many people, person after person after person, that gets a miraculous result. That, I even have one patient where her physician was sure she was going to need a hip replacement, went to the orthopedic surgeon, he was sure she was going to need a hip replacement, and then 3 weeks after seeing me, she went back with no pain, and he didn't believe it. He said, yeah, sure, come see me in 6 weeks, I'm sure you'll need your hip replacement. 6 weeks later, she was doing even better. 6 weeks later, she even got back to running. So this is somebody who's Medicare age, she's older, but I don't want to necessarily say it's a miracle, because I think that it's an everyday miracle. We don't know what's possible until we find the right thing that works for us. And then a lot of times the sky is the limit. So saying I'm just getting old is true, but a lot of times it chops you off from finding the solution you want or you need preemptively. So those are the detrimental things that I see. And so I want you to tap into your awareness, get rid of those false beliefs, and tap into what is possible. And so, who am I? Like, what is my story? People have kind of asked, and I've spoken a little bit about this, and people have come out and said, well, I didn't know that. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I want you to keep kind of trying this activation when you're sitting at home. So I guess you can call me somebody who's made lemons from lemonade, but I had lemons for a very long time before it became lemonade. This is not my first rodeo. This is not my first time doing this. I am new to the internet space, but so being young, I was interviewing to become a PT. I was in the best shape of my life when I came up with severe problems where I had never had any prior problems. I had no friends going through any medical complications. My friends were really concerned with going on dates and drinking and studying for exams. And so when I started having health problems and wasn't being able to be helped by the normal prescriptions, the normal doctors, if you look at the picture on the left, I was a mountain biker. And if anybody knows anything about mountain biking, my heart rate got over 200 beats per minute during a mountain bike race. So that was the most aerobic I've actually ever been in my life. You're using your upper body, your lower body. I was doing races at Texas State University on the cycling team. So best shape of my life compared to the picture on the right was a picture I just started physical therapy school. And one of my dear, dear friends, I had to have a rolling backpack on the right, and with my lunchbox, and I just was having so much pain in my back, my hips, my knees, my ankles, and my friend decided to get a rolling backpack together. So we were like the roly-poly backpack club, and she's smiling about it. So everybody loved that. We were just like the two rolling backpacks in the class, which was so supportive. But, from going to one to the other in less than a year, it was devastating for me at an early age. I was 25 years old. I was spending a lot of my money, a lot of my loan money, on trying to figure out medical benefits, which was also very difficult because I was going to school. So I think that part of my journey is because the reason I'm so passionate about it is, and I know I have a spelling mistake there, but I was a patient before I was a practitioner. And that taught me so much about how I wanted to be treated, how I wanted to treat other people. Some of the things some people said to me and limited my beliefs on what was possible or what I should do. was really concerning, and it just taught me how I wanted to treat people and what type of impact that I wanted to leave on this world. And so, how did I get here? I was an active child, as you could see on the left. That's me and my brother. I wanted to be exactly like my brother growing up. He was athletic. I wanted to play with all of his friends. On the right, I had just won a criterium race. It was a cycling race where it was a sprint on a really cool racetrack out in Austin. So I went from an active life to the worst time in my life, and not really realizing at the time that it would eventually become my life's purpose and passion, and what I feel like I've put here to kind of fulfill and live out on this planet. So I was forced to figure out solutions, and really staying active was so important to me. So fine-tuning these puzzle pieces and really problem solving through these complexities was so important. I had a physician tell me, there is nothing else we can do. You will just have to adapt to this new way of life. Now, have you been told that before? Like, this is just the new you. This is just what you have to get used to. And when it limits what you can do and you're active, like, I felt destroyed. Just like I was like, this can't be it. Like, what else can I do? Who else do I talk to? Where else do I turn? And so, like, I had gone to physical therapy school, and I thought that would help me solve all of my problems, or I would just learn more about the body. And I was determined at this point to learn about the body, help myself, and then help other people. So I had this feeling from before I started to feel better, or before I even discovered dance. So this is me on the left. I graduated in flats because I was in so much pain. I think I posted my story, but I was in so much pain to walk the stage. I couldn't even walk with my classmates to Will Rogers Hall, which was right across the street. My husband dropped me off in a handicap spot, so it was bittersweet. I was graduating, like, so thankful to have my doctorate and to have gotten through it and to be blessed to pursue a higher education, but not being able to walk at the same time was tough, to say the least. So these were hard times. I stopped exercising completely. I stopped because it was hurting me. Even as a physical therapist, learning about which exercises should be beneficial, I had a hard time finding ones that wouldn't hurt me. I was looking everywhere. I looked at the medical and physical medicine. Like, I investigated different disease causes of pain, different physical causes of pain, emotional, even spiritual, alternative, regular doctors. At some point, I just became so desperate that I was exploring what everybody had to say and seeing, you know, is there somebody that, you know, has the wisdom to help? Or how can I best live my life to the fullest? And so I even got unnecessary surgery. And I hate when I see people in the clinic that get unnecessary surgery. Of course, I never tell them that after they've had surgery, but it's very unfortunate because a lot of times once you have surgery, your body is permanently altered and you can't go back. Granted, sometimes you might absolutely need it, of course. So I started writing every single morning, and I've been doing this for years, and this might be one of the best things that I've done for myself. I wrote about what worked, what didn't work, what I tried, what I thought, and I just did free writing every single morning for many, many years. And so that was the beginning of coming up with these ideas and these programs to really help solve my own body problems uniquely and move on to help other people solve theirs. I found mentors. I found fascia. I started to figure out the ins and outs of what I didn't learn in school, of all of this other stuff that, you know, I thought as a doctor of physical therapy, we would have learned it all. And I realized it was a great education. It was a great baseline. And I'm glad I had it to build on, because I don't think I would have been able to build on nothing. But what I've learned since school has been so much more impactful and phenomenal And so I'm really excited to continue to share this. So I've been getting breakthroughs in my bodies. I started getting breakthroughs of the clients that I was working with, sometimes doing very different methods. You know, I had a patient, the first patient that I brought my method to, and he had a breakthrough. He was actually an 80-year-old gentleman who was about to have back pain surgery or back surgery, and he was going to have back and neck surgery, but his family was so concerned because once you're that old, it's very, very risky to have that type of surgery. And I was doing stuff with him that, if you know anything about movement, that were closed chained and activating the feet. So that's how I actually worked on his back. And of course they said, you know, we're not really sure why you're doing this. I tried to explain it to them, but they said, you're the professional. We always listen to instructions. So I was like, okay, great. This is what we're going to try. I really believe this will work better than the traditional back exercises. And in 2 weeks, his wife came back to me and said, you know what? He's not even saying he has pain anymore. And so we're going to put off having surgery. We're not even going to go in for the follow-up consultations. I go back 6 weeks later and they say, you know, we want you to come back and work with him because he's forgotten what to do, but it worked last time. And sure enough, after getting him trained again, we got his pain at bay to where he did not need those dangerous surgeries. So this is so powerful. The science is still being discovered about fascia. It's not completely discovered. In these pictures here, like one of the bottom ones, I was graduating from undergrad at Texas State, and then this one to the right is kind of trying to depict fascia. It's like the sausage casing, the casing, not just under your skin, but within the compartments of your body and surrounding your muscles and your organs and everything. So me on the top right, I was having gastroenteritis problems, and I actually at that time was suffering for years not being able to eat any food unless it was boiled and bland for many, many years. I even went to India and had to bring my own food bars. That's how bad it was. But I actually ended up I had a problem with they call it the upper esophageal sphincter, and I came up with exercises to realign my organs through fascia along with diet to get rid of my problem. Now I eat all of the spicy, wonderful Indian food or Mexican food that I want, which is wonderful. So it's really powerful fascia, like something to do with the organs that was helped. And I helped somebody else with a really so bad GERD in the same way. So just giving you some examples of how powerful fascia really is and how meaningful it's been in my life and my patients. So I look behind the scenes. It's just science driven. I've written about, I've tested these things. I have a very test retest mentality for over 11 years. I've been doing that now. And so finding the right mentors, my very first mentor was one of my teachers, and he knew about fascia and how powerful the nervous system is. And let me tell you something cool. One day in class, he made somebody in a wheelchair who had been in a wheelchair for 5 years, a young lady who was 20 years old that was in an accident. He made her get up and walk. And she took her first steps in our classroom for the very first time because of the techniques he used. And I knew at that moment that these techniques are powerful. And I went on to find out they're not only for neurological patients, they're for anyone who wants to activate their nervous system. So isn't that cool? Isn't that cool that, he was the person able to do the technique after she had been to therapy for years and years and years, but he was the one to get her to start walking again in front of me in class. So, just let me know if you think that's neat. 'Cause definitely memorable in my life. So it's become my life purpose. And it's not about what I can do. It's more about what we can accomplish together, because without you, this transformation can't take place. And that's what I enjoy so much. So at this point, I got more into dance. I started working hard to come up with creative ways to minimize my pain because I really wanted to dance. And I would take a video that I saw and I try to come up with ways to dance better. I would see myself dancing. I'd be horrified, as we all do sometimes, and just know that how do I get better at this? And part of it was getting over pain, and part of it was just figuring out how to get better in and of itself. So I started to see that I could do things and it would benefit both my pain and make me a better dancer, because it would engage my posture and my stabilizing muscles. So 2 birds, 1 stone. Isn't that cool? So things benefited both, and I realized my strength as a problem solver with these issues. I made a pact to myself to be impactful. And I love art, but knowing how to get from A to B has always been super important to me. And so it's like mixing art with cutting edge science. Like when teachers would say things like settle and intention and activation, foot speed, grounded, positive side, these were all words that I'm like, what does that mean exactly? Like, what are they actually wanting me to do? What are the steps to get to this word that I don't fully understand, or I don't understand the way it's being explained in dance terms? So I always tried to make these translations from what I knew in anatomy to this dance anatomy and this dance language that these dance teachers were telling me. So I use this analogy of macaroons because I realized that sometimes within these simple terms, right? Like settle, for instance, it's a simple term, but it's packed with so much information within it, right? I mean, just to be able to settle the hip, yeah, we can kind of do it, but are we doing it properly? Are we rotating? Are we using the right muscles really, you know? Are we connected from the shoulder down to the hip? Does it translate to the thigh and the leg and transfer the foot and all this stuff, right? So then you start to realize, oh, just the word settle is packed with so much anatomy and physiological information that we have to make happen or have happen in our bodies, which is not as simple as just the term. So what I realized is that like pros, they say it and then they can do it easily. They've been doing it in training usually for a very long time, a lot of times before they could even walk, it seems. And as adults, we need prequel steps. We need steps like, okay, if settling is, or foot speed or something is D, you know, we can do drills and we can hear the explanation, but unless we get A, B, and C information, it's going to be really hard just to pull D out right away, or, you know, after just A or after just D information. So it's like if you just started baking and somebody was like, okay, as your first cookie, I want you to bake some macaroons. And you're just like, wait, what? For my first cookie? Like, can I just figure out how to bake a sugar cookie first? And then can we put sprinkles on it and then add chocolate chips? And then can we make like a sugar cookie sandwich cookie and another cookie and then macaroons? Do I have to start with just making a macaroon? And how do I even do that? And what does that even mean? Isn't that a French cookie? Like, it looks like a hamburger. What's that all about? So it's like it's a simple word like, oh, just make a macaroon. But there's so much packed in it. And a lot of times we need these prequel steps or these exercises or activations or knowledge of baking different cookies or different steps to get to the macaroon. So write in the comments if that example made any sense to you, if you like that example of macaroons. So we're going to talk about the hand to shoulder connection. And so now going back to the movement part, we're going to talk in how it aids the sliding of the rib cage. We talked about that, the use of the back muscles and the chain reactions. So we're going to start by doing something that will make more sense later on as we do the activations, which is the hand. And, you know, I said I would talk a little bit about anatomy. This is dance anatomy. So a muscle that even in regular anatomy gets overlooked is called the palmar and dorsal interossei, right? So like, when do we ever hear about that? A lot of times as practitioners, we don't even notice this. And so this, if you think about the core of your stomach, your deep core system that you feel super engaged with through dance, every part of your body has a core. So your hand has a core, your leg has a core, your foot has a core, your neck and head all have a core. Core just means innermost. These muscles here are the core of your hand. And because there's so many nerve endings in our hands, these are so important. So what we're going to do is we're just going to start activating our hand, and I'm going to make this a little bit bigger real quick, and I'm going to show you with my hand. I'm going to do kind of two motions in one. I'm going to kind of squeeze the palmar and ossei together, and then also extend the fingers back. So I'm just squeezing and extending back. Squeezing and extending back. Squeezing and extending back. Squeezing, extending back. Squeezing, extending back. Squeezing, extending back. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this ball. If you have a towel or a jacket or just a piece of blanket or cloth or material, you can just wad that up in your hand. This is a stress ball. So I'm just practicing now, instead of bringing the fingers back, the palmar interossei with the extensors of the fingers back, I'm going to bring the palmar interossei together with the flexors of the hand. So I'm going to bring them together and squeeze. And the key here that I want you to focus on is keeping the fingers squeezed together, not losing it. I call it something called prioritization, prioritizing the fingers together over the actual squeeze. So the squeeze is not going to feel as strong because you're really strongly prioritizing the fingers together as you squeeze. Okay? So I want you to go through those two motions, the fingers together and the flexion, and the fingers together and the extension. And for right now, I'm a little bit more wanting the flexion. So find something to grab and just kind of rep that out. Okay, keep repping that out. And if your fingers get tired, just take a little bit of a break. This interesting fellow over here is something called, kind of shocking to look at, I'm not going to lie, but this is really amazing. It's a roadmap into how our brain prioritizes our nervous system and what it pays attention to. So if you're into learning more about this guy, also please comment about it, because this is one of my most fascinating topics that I personally am fascinated by, that I study. So if we want to dive more into the whys of this, why this works, how this works, and really learn about that, write it in the comments so I can really go more in depth on the homunculus and how I use it. So since all of this stuff, making lemonade out of lemons, I have since become a patented inventor. Worked for a university teaching people about fascia, which is not currently part of the regular curriculum. So really trying to get that into students' brains more, so they don't have the rude awakening like I did, to really try and find answers. I have been lecturing and just evaluating tests for the students. I've worked for 10 years as a physical therapist in an outpatient clinic. I've gotten referral after recommendation, after testimonial, after testimonial, after testimonial. You know, it took me a while to have the confidence to realize the power of what I'm doing. But as people have come out and told me, this is very unique work, this is very different, this is very effective, I have continued on that path, and that's why I started my company, to really spread these impactful ideas and these instruments that I'm building, and just ways to utilize the fascia. So if you're like me, though, you know, I've got my doctorate and did these things, but really what's really important to me is to continue to dance. So you know, if you're like me, dancing is your emotional outlet, it's your physical outlet, it's your spiritual outlet. You haven't been dancing your whole life. I mean, I did when I was in elementary school, but I didn't after that until, you know, 5 years ago. And so I'm a busy adult also. I manage a body that has a high propensity to be injured. So, you know, I have to be careful. Expressing myself through dance is hugely important to me. The performing spirit pushes me. Living my life to the fullest is hugely important to me. And so dance body, dance anatomy movement was formed. And this I call phase 0 for the awareness phase. We're going to get aware with range of motion, planes of our body, activations, how it's different than regular anatomy, and how dancing can be worked on through these activations really, really powerfully. And so we're going to explore the basic components of that. And so moving on, keeping with the movement portion of me expanding my camera. We're going to go here. It says phase 0, step 1, range of motion. So dance, there's more ranges of motion than we learn in regular anatomy and more combinations that we use. So we use the pad muscles, we're going to use the tris, we're going to talk about flexion, and how the shoulders and the ribs move separately and together. So we're going to come back to a couple things. We're going to come back to this thing that we did with our arm, where we bring our arm down and back to feel our back muscles, and the hand squeeze here. So all we're going to do here is we're going to put the ball or the jacket or the blanket towel in our hand, and we're going to get into this position with our arms out and up again. But this time we're going to keep a firm grip on the ball, but prioritizing those fingers together over everything else. So I just want you to squeeze the ball, and I want you to notice the feeling in this back muscle where you have the ball compared to this arm where you don't have the ball, okay? So we're going with our arms down and rotating them back, and this arm has a ball and this arm doesn't. And we're just keeping our fingers together, squeezing, and we're just noticing the difference between the ball side of our scapula and the other one. Bring it out, squeeze it down, notice the difference, and relax. Bring it out, squeeze it down, notice the difference, and relax. So I want you to keep prioritizing this, and if you are, you should really start to feel your scapula muscles more, even though you're just changing your hand. So keep an open mind about this, and let's keep going a little bit, okay? So this time we changed the range of motion of our fingers, right? So we can change other, we call ranges of motion. So what is a range of motion? So it's just going to be any way your arm can move through space. But at each joint or each body zone, there can be different ranges, and some ranges you might not even knew that you had. So for instance, with this activation and in dance, a lot of times we are bringing out our arm. So our arm is here, and we can bring our arm out in two ways. So here is my shoulder, and we can reach out our shoulder as far as we can and relax. And we can just reach it out as far as we can. And this range of motion is not talked about much because it's a outward, we call it protraction of the scapula. But what we don't talk about in the medical world is there can be two motions that affect protraction. And if we combine them together, we're going to get the ultimate protraction. And if we do one or the other, we'll get a version of protraction, of this reaching out of our shoulder girdle, okay? So I want you to keep, we're going to keep this consistent with the fingers together and squeezing, okay? So we're going to keep that consistent and reach out and relax. And we're just going to do that 10 times to get a feel for it. It's going to reach out through the shoulder like somebody's at the end of our hand and we're handing them something. It's kind of a small motion, so you can watch me do it. I'm just handing somebody something. Handing them. And it's a muscle called our serratus anterior that does a lot of protraction. That's like fingers here underneath our scapula. Underneath our scapula, there's a lot of protraction. Okay, so the other movement is going to be more of a movement of our spine. Like a translation is a range of motion of our spine from here to here. So if I reach out the ball, and instead of reaching my shoulder out, I think about this part of my rib cage is just coming over. And if you look at me, I would suggest actually standing up during some of this, and you'll be able to notice it a little bit better. So if you're here and you're standing up, I'm reaching over through here, over through the rib cage. So I can combine the two, and I could reach out and over while keeping the fingers contracted and together, and relax. Reach out and over and come back. So we went through the range of motion of protraction through our scapula, but also translation of our rib cage. Combine that with a hand activation, and we can now start to get a really powerful feeling in our side, a really connectedness in our body that's, you know, it has an intensity to it. But as we'll go along and we'll talk about this method, is a lot of it has to do with digging the grooves and digging the pathways to get our body and our fascia functioning as it should. Because our lifestyle usually kind of breaks it down, and our age and genetics and our past injuries all play a role in, is our fascia optimally being used? And if you're a dancer as an adult, chances are we're learning faulty patterns. So these patterns are starting to program and bring back online the fascia the way it should be moving. So this is just, like I said, this is just the awareness phase. I wanted everybody just to all start from the same basic knowledge and give some powerful activations that were simple but make a lot of sense for a lot of different styles of dance. So let's try. Let's actually move on for now. I have a couple other ones coming up. So I want you guys to continue to kind of practice this reaching out, and I'm going to show you this video. This is me before and after, and this was when I first started dance about 5 years ago. And as you'll see on the right, I'm dancing in flats because I just couldn't keep my balance in heels at all, and never wore heels before, thought I wasn't a heels person. And then yeah, so on the right, that's me 5 years ago, and then on the left, that's me at the Millennium competition in 2022. And I just want you guys to see that how powerful this fascia work has just been in my life, just to really get better at dance, which I love to do. So so as you can see, not the most graceful, not the least graceful on the right, and just really kind of no clue of the angles or the steps or how my body should really be moving through space. Not really able to wear heels at all. So that's my results in dancing so far as a busy adult. And so what people say about working with me, congrats, mean your innovative therapy is revolutionary and offering creative solutions for chronic movement challenges. Can't wait. Been working with Dr. Mina McCullough and her Body Spring method for a few months for back hip pain and have experienced dramatic improvement. Thank you for your appointment. I'm already feeling so much better. You know what to do. And I love working with these people and discovering their bodies with them. For dance and other sports athletes, Dr. Mina is the body whisperer for tightness, soreness, aches, pains. She probes into every aspect of your body fascia to determine the most effective solution. And then I have some of my clients are in person, but I also have some reviews from the online courses that I've been doing. And so I just wanted to share one person's results. I'm extremely happy I joined the Body Spring Fascia course in October. I've learned so much about my body and how small movements can make a big difference. Dr. McCullough really knows her stuff, and it's obvious she cares about helping people. I appreciate the way she communicated and listened to me with my specific issues throughout the course. Her understanding of dance is a plus because she targeted injuries that are common in dancers and can modify exercises depending on each participant's needs. It was impressive. She used easy to understand visuals and analogy to explain her lessons. And the best part, I've only been doing the exercises and stretches for 2 weeks, and I have seen a difference in my body, and I feel a difference in my body. My hip doesn't hurt nearly as much, and I have the mobility in my rib cage and spine. So I really people have really been getting good results for a long time with this method, and that's just some of the people, working with me on this stuff. So now, going back to the movement section again, I told you I was going to go back and forth and back and forth. That way I can keep you guys interested and kind of tell you a little bit more about what I have going on. Okay, so body zones. So what are body zones? So they're areas of your body. They're connected but separate, right? Because everything's connected, but we have to separate and talk about the body somehow. So dance should take into account more than traditional anatomy, and we can do combinations of body zones, and that's what makes dance so interesting. And it still doesn't explain everything, though. The activations are kind of the cherry on top, and so we're just now really exploring that, so we'll kind of get into more. Let's see. So let me... Again, so body zones, body areas. These are what we're going to break the body down into. So we talked about, everybody knows different joints, right? We have our shoulders, our neck, but in the body zones and body anatomy, we're also going to talk about our face and our head as a zone. We're going to talk about our sides as a zone, the shoulder connection from our shoulder to a hip. So here is going to be a zone. Because how important is that zone to dance? Way more important than I thought or knew or realized 5 years ago, 2 years ago, or even a year ago. So that's going to be a huge one. So we're going to have all of these additional body zones that aren't traditional anatomy words. There's not going to be a word for this section of our body. A lot of times people say our side or our flank or the outsides of our body, or if we wanted to say that there's a muscle there, sometimes people say the transverse abdominis, but we're really talking about more than that. We're talking about how our body is going to be spiraling and using and leaning and being active with our partners, and how that's a huge body zone. So we're going to go through body zones. We're even going to separate our head and our neck into several mini zones, such as like this zone versus this zone, and how it actually connects into zones all the way down into your hand. And so when I work with a lot of people with severe shoulder problems, my hand looks a little, I have painting on my hand. It's not burned or anything. So we have zones, and people with severe shoulder pain, or people who just want to get better at styling, really dig in those trenches to then be a better dancer. And so we're going to go through a couple body zones with the exercise that we're currently doing, okay? So one body zone I want to go through is we're going to add in the neck a little bit. So again, this is just kind of like a range of motion, but the what is the neck and the how is the range of motion. So if you're reaching your arms out, you're reaching your shoulder and your rib cage out in a direction, and then you lean your neck away from that, keeping all the while this first hand motion in place, and relax. And I want you to rep that out at least 10 times. So you're going to reach the shoulder out. That's protraction of the shoulder, the serratus. But then you're going to reach the rib cage out with it. And then you're just going to gently lean the neck away and relax. And you're going to keep the hand lock, shoulder and rib cage out, neck away, and just notice. I just want you to become aware of the differences adding these different things are to your body, and you should definitely feel like you're doing a workout. After you do 10 reps of this, we're going to go into prioritization. What are the most important things, and how are you going to feel it even deeper? So go on to why do people have a hard time finding an optimal solution for their body? And it's why your stretching and exercise routine is not enough. But it's easy to fix. We're going to add activations and really clever things to it. So I realized firsthand through my whole process that not all practitioners have the same knowledge or get the same results. I learned this as a patient first. Some are even set up in a way to keep you coming back forever to ensure their business model over your health. Traditional therapy exercises and most stretching programs, chiro, massage, don't give complete results, especially not by themselves. The most popular facts aren't always the best learning techniques. A lot of times we read something on the internet, or all of our friends know something to be as true, which might not really be the most optimal thing, or might not even be true at all. And that, learning a technique or learning something as an adult a lot of times takes, again, those more steps, those prequel steps to break it down, to get it in our body. And these steps have to be learned by our body in phases. So just like dance, you're not going to become amazing or proficient or feel something that you can't feel immediately. We have to do it in phases. And I think the most important thing that I learned as a patient and that helped me the most in my journey was learning concepts I could do at home. I could learn and then implement, not have to rely on anybody else to work on my health, work on my dance, work on my body. Because relying on somebody else to having to schedule, drive to, go back to, it wasn't effective. It wasn't time effective. It wasn't financially effective. And it wasn't even like effective when I, had, tried to put in the time and money in both things. It wasn't something that I found, or a lot of my clients find as well, like bang for your buck. As soon as you know how to do something, you can make the most impactful results. And so that is why I want to explain to you the structure of how I came up with the stuff that I do, because it started with movements in the first phases, and what are these activation phases that I can do on my own. And then with my patients, it developed into what manual therapy, what hands-on techniques am I doing? How am I pulling them and teaching them about fascia? How am I stretching them, touching them, instructing them, using different tools and techniques to mobilize and manipulate and help them get that understanding of how to move and work the fascia. And after a while, really what I found the most effective is because I couldn't be my own therapist, and it was hard for me to teach somebody else to do what I was doing because I was doing something new. So then with time, that's where I started developing the equipment. So I could do to myself what I did to other people. So you too, or anybody in time, can learn to do these things to yourself by yourself. Does it take practice and time? Yes. Is it possible? Yes. Is it the most self-reliant, beneficial, effective thing to do for yourself and your body and your dance and your performance? Yes. Because these are stuff that are amazing for warm-ups. These are stuff that I've done right before I've gone onto a dance floor, and it makes me a better dancer, like in the moment. Takes away pain in the moment. I had knee pain before a competition. I thought I was gonna have to cancel it. So these things are what has brought me through those moments. Because like I said, I have fibromyalgia. I have Lyme disease. I was diagnosed with many chronic illnesses, but like these things are what's been most effective for me in the exercise and movement realm. So these are the stages and the phases. And right now we're in stage 0, which is awareness, which is a really good place to be, because to get that awareness means you're trying to understand yourself. And once you understand yourself, you can help solve your own problems. And that's what I'm empowering you to do with me here. So step 3 is understanding the different planes of movement. So different planes of movement will activate different fascial patterns and different places in your body that are tight, and you don't really need to know what causes what. You just need to know that there's different planes, and I will walk you through all of them. I planned much more than I could get through today, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a two-parter, or there's going to be a to be continued on this webinar. So I am going to go through this last activation. I want to show you the homework that I want you to go home with and do, and then we will close it out, and I'll do and post a part 2 so this webinar doesn't get so long. For this webinar, where we'll talk more about the rest of the activation, a little bit more about fascia, and a little bit more about what I see in the future and what I have in store and would like to work with you guys on. So let's go into body planes. Okay, so we have our fingers together and squeezing the ball and are reaching out. And so we're going to kind of keep the neck neutral for now. We're just going to reach out with the arm and the rib cage, keeping the hand, and relax. And if you haven't yet, switch hands to get the body nice and just like balanced out here. And do it on the other side a couple times. And stretch the shoulder out, stretch the rib cage out with the hand activated, and relax. Stretch the arm out, stretch the rib cage out, keep the hand activated with the fingers together, and relax. Stretch the arm out, relax. Okay, so one thing that we're going to do is we're going to take it into a different plane. So we can go from here, this is like the frontal plane, and if we go this way, it's the sagittal plane. So if we move anything in this direction versus this direction, and if we move anything around our bodies this way in rotation, that's going to be the transverse plane. But in dance, a lot of times we always dance kind of on like a diagonal. So there's not technically a plane for that, and so we're going to call it like the scaption plane, which is a word that we also use in anatomy for the angle that our shoulder and our shoulder stabilizer muscles like best to move at. So just like muscles and fascia and anatomy, some of the things we're learning here is what does our body actually like to do. So if we can tap into what our body likes to do and what naturally likes to do, that's how we're going to tap into and unwind and untwist these fascial planes to make us more effective dancers and less injury prone. So what we're going to do is not only are we going to reach out to the side, I want you to come into scaption here in the front. Oh, wow, my arm looks really long in this angle. And we're going to come, it's kind of funny, and we're going to come out into the side in scaption. And I want you to notice this more. See if you feel up under here a little bit differently. Keep that hand active and relax. We're going to go into a different plane. We're going to come up above our head here, still keeping these fingers together and squeezed. We're going to come up with our arm, and then we're going to come up where we almost, again, you're going to want to stand up. If we come up with our arm, but we're kind of just like reaching a little bit up out of the shoulder, but then almost side bending with our thoracic here as a secondary motion. So we're coming, reaching up, bending slightly over, reaching up, bending slightly over. So I hope you guys are actually feeling the burn and getting a good workout, getting some awareness of how our hand is connected to our shoulder and our rib cage. And there's so much more where this came from. I had so much more in store and planned, but I will schedule a time because I already have it ready to go in the near future where I'm going to hop on and we're going to do a part 2 of the dance body anatomy. I have something that want you guys to work on as homework. And so if you can just, work on these motions, keeping the hand lock, stretching out, thinking about your shoulder versus your rib cage and how you might stretch with both or either. Noticing that they're different muscles coming from different actions and how you're feeling the whole thing kind of move as one unit and together. So I have here a website that I made myself. There are 2 sections, one to work with me online no matter where you live, and one to work with me if you live in the DFW area. And please reach out to me on DM in Facebook. If you have any questions, we can always get on a call to talk. No problem. I would love to book a call with you. And this is if you'd like to work one-on-one. My website is www.injuryfreedom.com. That's www.injuryfreedom.com. And right now with a lot of websites, you don't have to add the www dot, but with mine you do. So just make sure to include it. And I am offering a jump start to your dance body experience. So as some of you guys know, in October, we did a spine awakening challenge where we focused on the thoracic spine, but I also talked about the whole spine because the whole spine really affects the thoracic spine. So we talked about spine awakening, rib cage isolations, exercises that allow you to feel like you're gliding across the dance floor, spine and back discomfort, relief while dancing, while creating wellness and preventing shoulder injuries from partner dancing, stacking your pelvis on your rib cage in a new way that you haven't learned before, mobilizing your rib cage and isolations in new ways. Take a journey into the Spine Awakening and Arm Challenge Rib Cage Connection. It's an online master series, 4-hour long courses throughout the month. It was a month long, so you have access to all of that. You have access to the bonuses during that month, and you have access to the reels and all of the conversations during that month. So there are drills within it, there are activations, there are exercises, and lots of information that we did together. And this will jumpstart the learning of my method, the learning of your body, the improvement of your dancing immediately with some of these techniques that I show you how to apply immediately on the dance floor and try it together with me. And that was an amazing deal for $2.99. And so I'm actually offering it because I wanted to give you guys a deal on that. And I'm offering it special pricing for this group because I love you guys, only $97. So for the next 4 days, there's going to be a link in the comments, and then be watching for the next schedule of the next webinar. Again, have an amazing night. Much love to you guys and happy holidays.
Method. Part 2, I really want to get on to really talking about the meat and give some really solid examples of like what we can actually do to really get deeper into our bodies. So I have this slideshow up and I'm gonna go back and forth from the slideshow to showing me. And so here is, let's see. Okay, so the dance body method is comprised of movements, and then as I developed the method, they were things that I was learning to do on my own by myself, and then I needed somebody or a practitioner to do it with me. However, I didn't have somebody. So for my patients to sometimes help speed up the process, I'm there working with them. And then as I really fine-tuned the method, I realized I could just make equipment. And so I have some equipment that I use in lieu of having somebody to work with, because when I was learning the method myself and when I was using it on myself for benefit, I didn't have another person because I was creating it and I didn't have another person with the system. So this method is possible to do all on your own. And sometimes you just need a little bit of equipment to do with it. And that's more like level 2 and level 3. There's some more steps involved in it. And it's more of really just digging into those deep roadways of your body, those grooves and trenches. So just to review from the last part 1, I'm going to review the movements. And so we did the initial movement and we talked about shoulders down and back. So when I say shoulders down and back, everybody can just kind of put their arms out. And in order to get this feeling that you're getting this scapula engagement, you can just bring your hands out here and turn them up to try and get some shoulders down and back there. And then I just want everybody to practice that 5 times, just rotating your hands up, keeping your arm above the horizon level to feel shoulders down and back. Now that's really good advice, I said in the first one, but what I alluded to is that we can make it better and we can kind of explore the way our body is connected just from this initial movement. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how we can add range of motions onto these initial combinations. So what we're going to do to feel our shoulders more is we're going to just explore ranges of motion. So some of the range of motion that we're going to go through is going to start with our hands. And I introduced that before. It's grasping our fingers together because this turns on the core of our hands. So do this with me. We're just going to do the same thing when our arms are up and back, getting our shoulders down and back. But this time we're really going to keep our fingers nice and squeezed together. And I want you to notice the difference of not having the fingers activated at all versus simply just squeezing the fingers together, adding one step and bringing them down and back and down and back. Another thing I'm also doing, talking about range of motion, I'm going into wrist flexion. So flexing the wrist and squeezing the fingers down and back and down and back. And I want you to prioritize, which is keeping the main thing, the fingers squeezing together during the whole movement. Down and back. Now let go of the fingers. Down and back. Now squeeze the fingers. Down and back. Now let go of the fingers. Let them be loose. Now let them be tight. And I want you just to notice the difference that you can actually use your hands to activate your scapula in your back. So we say move with intention. We say, use your back muscles, but we can also use this connectivity of this chain to activate our back muscles. So range of motion. So staying on this concept, we're also going to look at range of motion of different body parts. So when we start to realize and really break down all of the individual motions of our body, we realize that our range of motion is here. Our hands do this and squeeze here. We also have a range of motion of flexion here. So let's go back into this motion and we're going to squeeze our hand like we're holding a sandwich. Okay, ready? So hold the sandwich. Hold the sandwich. And the fingers are still together. Hold the sandwich. Hold the sandwich. I want you to notice your back muscles turning on even more by holding the sandwich. Now keep your fingers together and we're going to flex our wrists and bring our wrists up. Bring our wrists up. Now we're going to talk about the range of motion of the elbow. So we're going to reach out and I want you to bend the elbow so much so that you get a little bit of a bicep contraction here. So make this muscle stand up a little bit, keeping the fingers squeezed. That's something that we're going to keep as a thread throughout the entire activation. So keep the fingers squeezed and contract the biceps. Now, if we look at the range of motion of the shoulder, we can raise the shoulder here and we get a completely different feeling in our backs. We get a complete engagement, a more of holding, very strong and powerful conditioning move. So we've taken range of motion of 3 joints, put them together, and got such a powerful new exercise. So fingers together as a range of motion, elbows bent, squeezing that bicep, and then elbows up, which is shoulder up. So first priority, fingers, second priority, biceps, third priority, elbows up. And if you notice when I do it, it naturally makes my posture so much taller and higher and better. And relax. And fingers and elbows and shoulders. And fingers and elbows and shoulders. And fingers and elbows, shoulders. Fingers, biceps, elbows up. Fingers, biceps, elbows up. And as you bring the elbows up, don't lose that bicep contraction. It should feel like it's difficult to do. It should feel like it's hard to do, like you're wading through quicksand in order to get the shoulders to come up because you're squeezing the biceps and the fingers. You should feel a pull, a good pull and attention throughout your back and your arms. Keep going. Fingers, biceps, keep the biceps, keep the fingers, raise the shoulders. And as you see, it naturally just increases my posture. I'm not trying to bring my spine up. It's just happening naturally. So what we're going to do is we're going to also explore. So that was range of motion. And so I hope you guys kind of understand why we can combine different range of motions to get these powerful movements. So step 2 is body zones. So body areas, they can be connected but separate. And so all I mean by that is, are we looking at your hand? Are we looking at your wrist? Are we looking at your elbow? Are we looking at your shoulders? And so what I like to do is break them down into individual components, but then talk about them like they're one thing, how we can activate them as one thing. So in dance, we have very interesting combinations of movements. And so especially with our rib cage in our inner body. And so and traditional anatomy tries to explain these dance movements. But what I've realized as a physical therapist is it doesn't fully explain all of the range of motions and possibility of movements that we can encounter. So one of them is this combined motion of the shoulder and the rib cage, scapula. And so I want you to go through that with me. So again, we're just going to come here and we're going to be hands up and the shoulders down in back position. And instead of thinking neutral here with both arms, we're going to think about reaching this arm out. Okay. So there's actually 2 ways and 2 things at play that we can do with body zones. We can take the shoulder and reach it out like we're trying to move through this joint right here. Right there, we're trying to just reach our arm out through here. So do that a couple of times where we're just reaching through the shoulder joint. So as far as anatomy is concerned, excuse me, this is protraction of the shoulder. And this is largely done by a muscle called the serratus anterior. And so again, keep the fingers squeezed to give yourself a little bit more pull here. So pull through the shoulder. Now, step 2, that you've practiced that, we can also separately pull through the rib cage. So if we're here, we can even stop pulling through the shoulder and just move our body from the rib cage up to the side. to the side. And we're just trying to put this part here over to the side, to the side. Now, when you see really connected dancing, what it is it's both. So this next time I want you to reach your shoulder and your rib cage at the same time. Again, keeping your fingers squeezed, we're activating the core of the hand. So your hand is here, you're bringing it here, you're reaching through the shoulder, and you're reaching through the rib cage. And instead of coming exactly side, we're going to go into our next topic, and we're going to talk about not just body zones, but body planes. So we're talking about, are we moving in the front to back direction? Are we moving in the side to side direction? Are we moving across here somewhere? Are we moving on the diagonal, which traditional anatomy doesn't talk too much about? So the planes in which we are moving. So how we would incorporate the planes is actually with the shoulder. There's this thing called scaption. So what scaption is, it's really cool. It's the preferred direction of your body. It's also the preferred direction that we dance in. So as dancers, everything is at a 45-degree angle to make it look better traditionally, or like if you're doing any type of movement, a lot of times you're angling your body in certain directions. And so the body, anatomy-wise, likes to be at these directions. And in dance, it's more beautiful and technically correct. So those are one and the same. So what we're going to do, we're going to take the hand, keep it squeezed. We're going to reach out, but we're going to reach on the diagonal. So I'm not coming side. That's not my body plane. And I'm not coming forward. That's not my body plane. I'm going to split the difference and come scaption around a diagonal here. And so that's going to help pull into our back muscles even more. So fingers together, wrist flexed. We're going to pull out from our shoulder, out from our rib cage. And I want you guys to stand up if you're not already standing, because you can then start to feel the connection through your opposite hip as you pull through this movement. So hand here, shoulder out, rib cage out, and pull through the movement and relax. Hand out, rib cage out, pull through that movement and relax. So don't forget the hand. The hand's activating things, and the range of motion in the body planes are really giving you more reach, more stretch, more idea of what your body can do and where you're pulling from. And the planes will solidify it in the way your body wants to naturally move, which is the ways we want to move, because it will agree with your dancing and make you look beautiful, have more beautiful lines naturally. So great job. So what we want to do next is I'm going to go through, so we talked about range of motion, we talked about planes and activations. We're going to talk about the fascia of the body. So essentially, why does this feel like more of a pull? So we went from doing a basic movement. We went from doing just the regular shoulders down and back to adding in our activations from the core of our hand and the core of our wrist, the range of motion. Here, we added in a plane, which is on a diagonal, and then a stretch not only from our shoulder, but from our rib cage too. And so what we're tapping into, and the reason I took you through this exercise and through these motions, is that we are tapping into the whole fascial plane and the whole fascial series, which what does that even mean? People ask me. And so if you think about your body as having fabric, and fabric running through the entire body, pulling from one end to the other, and inside that fabric, there's a series of muscles. And so that fabric spans all of those muscles, and it's really the secret to not only unlocking pain and stiffness, but unlocking your dance beauty and your dance performance and the ability that you are able to do. So there's so many connections that I essentially developed this method to help teach people what are these connections in our body, why are they important, and how can we use them, and how can we understand them really simply? How can we just take something so simple add it together, like 1 + 2 + 3, and then come out with an equation that you can reproduce and problem solve whenever you're having problems yourself. So a lot of this stuff applies to all types of dance. I always look for the things that apply everywhere. So these are the beneficial things that apply everywhere. And so what I'm showing in this video is like this springiness is when fascia is healthy. It's going to spring on itself, and hence the name of my company. Actually, that's why I named it Body Spring. And that's where the name comes from and originates from, is the springing of your fascia when it's healthy, because it's a really beautiful thing and it feels really nice from the inside, and it looks really beautiful from the out. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to lengthen and strengthen and stretch as we move. That way we're training our fascia to stay long, because once it sucks up, that's when you get pain. That's when you get arthritis. This here is a depiction of how our fascia supports our body. These popsicle sticks are not even connected, but they're connected by string. See here, I touched the string to show you. The fascia is like essentially this tensioning thing that can be moved and mobilized, but this is how it actually supports the skeleton, and it's an analogy for it. So I really like to show people that. And so we're digging the grooves in your body that should already be there naturally, that maybe because you don't have the perfect genetics, because you haven't like trained these movements from when you're younger. There's so many reasons why you don't have these fascial planes dialed in. But by training these fascial planes, these grooves, these pathways, we can start to really warm up your body. And not only that, but develop these grooves. So then when you try to move later, your body is much better at moving. So these here are some depictions of fascial planes, and it's this pull that's natural in our body, but we don't always feel. And so we need to start training it, because it's a very healthy way to kind of live and be. And I skipped ahead quite a bit. So the way I also think about it is, I wanted to show you guys healthy and unhealthy fascia. So on the left, that's healthy fascia. Like every time you take a step, you should actually have a chain reaction of your muscles going from your feet up to your glutes that feels very full and activated, uses the entire muscle. But when your fascia is flattened or stuck together, you're not activating your muscles at all, or you're not activating them fully. And you start to get this pain. You start to get not full activation in your muscles. And so hence the red with pain. So that's kind of a visual for you guys to see as you walk. And so your fascia, this fabric, it gets stuck in all of these ways. So the method of untraining and de-sticking this fabric from different, I love this. I love this video, because if it might not make sense to a lot of people, but once you start working the method, this video really makes sense how it unsticks and here unwrinkles. And I have irons here, the fascia. And I talk about fascia as outfits, because in outfits, we have layers of clothing. And in layers of clothing, just like outfits, there's layers. And so one layer should be separate from the other, right? Like we don't have like a jacket that's like stuck and glued to our shirt, which is what happens with our fascia. So just like clothing, we want to have that free flow movement between the layers of clothing. So, okay, step 4, activations. So I want to go a little bit deeper into what we did as far as the series of movements go. And so I want you guys to come back into this position again. And it looks like my arms are straight here, but I want to talk about the triceps. Okay, so the triceps and the biceps, as well as the hand, is a gateway to the back muscles. We can really activate those to get these back muscles more turned on, which is what we want. We want the back muscles working and moving. And the reason the back muscles stop moving is usually the reason we have pain, or we can't dance full out, or we don't look like our dance teachers. So if we come here with hands together and wrist flex, I want you guys just to try and make not just your arms straight, but as straight as you can. So you actually are turning on your tricep muscle. And so as you see, my back here just kind of raised up, and it's kind of pulling my arm in a new direction. So the two things I'm thinking about for activations is I'm not forgetting about these hands together, okay? So let me tell you a secret about the hands. They're much more important than we first thought. So instead of thinking about the hands as an afterthought, we're going to think of the hands as one of the main things. We're going to think about the hands as one of the main things that we're doing. We're not going to forget the hands. And so during this whole activation, the hands are always going to stay in mind. And I call this prioritization. And what prioritization is keeping the main thing, okay? So keeping the hands together, fingers squeezing. We're going to keep the fingers squeezing, and we're going to reach out with the shoulder. We're going to reach out with the rib cage. Standing is better. And then we're going to contract the tricep and relax. And squeeze the fingers together. Keep the wrist bent. Reach out with the shoulder from right here, like you're giving something to somebody that's across the room, right? You're taking the rib cage and we're moving it out in the same direction as the shoulder. And then lastly, if we can hold all of this stuff, we're going to connect the tricep and relax. Whew. And it should be pretty intense because we're digging those grooves and resetting that fascia. So when we relax and when we dance or we do a sport or we can move with more freedom through our body and more connectivity because we've connected it. We've connected the body. So let's do it about 10 times together because we got to rep this out to get the most benefit out of it. So squeeze the hand. Flex the wrist. We're at a diagonal here as far as planes go. We're reaching out with our shoulder, reaching over with our rib cage, and then this muscle here, tricep, try to contract that tricep at the end. There's one. There's two. There's three. There's four. There's five. There's six. There's seven. There's eight. And stand up if you're not. There's nine. And there's 10. Ooh. Okay. So great job, because I know I'm giving you a lot to do. I know I gave you a lot of steps. It might take some practice. Because there are multiple steps and I've been doing this for a long time, but I wanted to give you the roadmap to get there. And so this is one of the most basic roadmaps, but the most effective roadmaps I can kind of illustrate for some of this fascia work that you can do at home. You can do with no equipment. It's just with the knowledge of what you're doing and why you're doing it. So cool story, bodybuilders will come to me and they'll be very strong people. I've had a lot of athletes, a lot of dancers, a lot of bodybuilders, runners, you name it, come to me. But it's really the bodybuilders that sometimes I find the most humorous in a sense to work with, because this motion, it doesn't require any weights. No weights. However, when you actually do all of the steps, it's much harder than it looks. Much, much harder to reach out and get that tricep contraction and feel that contraction coming from your tricep all the way down your side than it is to sometimes, lift a 20-pound weight, because maybe we're not lifting weights and maybe we're not doing all of our movements in the most connected ways. So then when we connect, it causes us to use the new muscles, the stabilizing muscles, the muscles that aren't fully being used that we did not even know of. So I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I hope you practice it. I still have a little bit more for you. So that was activations. And so they essentially decrease the amount of time to learn a movement or to learn form. And so if we practice these activations, we're naturally going to understand our form and what our teachers and our coaches are asking of us just naturally. And these activations are found all over the body in all different types of ways in all different muscles. So I'm really excited to whoever wants to share, to work with me, to share these with you, and to continue sharing these in these events. So I make the analogy that it turns the light switch on. So putting it together, what are you moving? You know, like we're going through the what, the where, the how, and the why, and the results. So what are you moving? You're moving different body zones. We talked about you're moving your shoulder, but how your shoulder is actually different for moving your rib cage. But when we reach for something, we don't always think about that. We don't always think that, hey, this zone is different than this zone, and they're working together. Because when you see empty movements and movements that they don't look like they have intention in dance, sometimes we just see an empty arm here. We don't see this reach through the shoulder, and then this reach through the rib cage, and then maybe this last minute straighten at the triceps to cause some type of chain reaction somewhere else. And so thinking about your body in these chain reaction ways is we can break it down into body zones. And where are you moving? We didn't talk about many planes, but one plane that we talked about was there's one that we call here, it's like the sagittal plane. And then here, right? Or I'm sorry, like the frontal plane and the sagittal plane. But we split the difference and we were doing a diagonal, and that's the most pleasing to the eye, but it's also the most pleasing to the body. So we're really doing exactly what looks good and what the body wants. So where are you moving it? So for instance, if there's range of motion and you're supposed to be reaching, but is your elbow straight? Like, is it bent at first? Is it high? Is it coming down low? Really dissecting in what direction it's moving and where it's going. So that's going to be range of motion. And then how are you going to make the quality better? How are you going to look more connected? How are you going to use your back, right? How are you going to use your back? Or if it's hard to use your back, how are you going to learn to use your back? You're going to learn to use your back with this stuff that we're teaching. This is the base of it right here. It's all of the forward mentioned things with adding on these activations. So it makes the quality better. And even if we don't end up using our hands, just by training that quality off the dance floor or off the field, we are training our bodies to naturally use those muscles, even if we're not doing the activations. So that's really important. So that is step 5 of essentially the process that we were teaching tonight. And it illustrates how there's a string of connected joints. So I didn't even start to get into rotations and the arm horizon and the angles, different methods within what we're doing to activate more muscles, like taking into a range of motion and then moving another body, pushing through a body. So there's so many more things that we can kind of explore with how our muscles are strung together. So I'm really excited about doing that. And so the ultimate dance goal is chain reactions. One muscle triggers another. And so they can't be trained one muscle at a time. We have to train them in this way, because if we train them through weightlifting or in any other way, we're not getting this awareness component of how is our body moving and why is it moving and where is it moving? Because I want to give you the power to unlock your own body. So it really starts to give you the sense of what's right and what's wrong and why. So you can start feeling inside of your body what's working. And so we're digging into those grooves and the pathways. And I put this up because there's so many different types of exercise in the world right now. Like there's so many things that you can do, right? You can do intervals, you can do HIIT training, you can do isometrics, you can do just regular exercise and stretching. But I like to really hone in on very specific things. And so this was a chain reaction method, but there's other methods that I like to train, but they're all activation based. So it's all doing a couple things at the same time to get a deep feeling in your body, to then gain the awareness that you need to both move and to take away your pain at the same time. So that's my work, my body of work is studying what's the best. That's what I wanted to know. Like when I was in pain and I was having problems, or I wanted to learn to dance, like that's what I wanted to know. Like, what is the best thing to do? Not what I could do, or not what's just going to waste my time, or what's not a waste of time, but it's going to get me somewhere. But like, what is going to be the most bang for my buck? Because I don't like to waste my time. I don't know about you, but I really hate wasting my time. And so that's why I really develop these activations. And sometimes people ask me, do I need to work on my fascia? And the answer is yes. Everybody needs to work on their fascia, because, I mean, fascia is everything. Fascia is in your muscles, it's in your organs, it's in your tendons, and it's like it's the molecule that runs through everything. I mean, if you're spiritual, it's spirituality. It's everything. If you know believe in, I think it's like called the Bose-Higgs particle, and they found that it actually exists everywhere in the world, connecting things. That's what fascia is. It exists everywhere in the body, connecting things. So if you're in pain, if you want to work on your form, it applies. So we can add this to our method, or whatever you're doing, or we can do this. It's a standalone thing. So the way I teach people is I teach them kind of like a 3P method at the beginning, which is position. What position is your body in? How much pressure? Like we were talking about, like how much do I squeeze? How much do I pull through my body? It's a calibration. And prioritize, keeping the main thing the main thing. I will tell you, I will instruct you what is the main thing, because sometimes I ask 3 or 4 things out of you, and I want you to make sure that you know what is the most important. To get deeper in the method, I have some products that I've developed that have to do with press points. Think about like acupuncture or acupressure, but with a product. And so this poster here kind of shows just briefly what are some of those points, and that will be deeper into the method. And then also with dance, the reason I put this slide up is because as adults, our fascia is a little bit tighter, or sometimes a lot tighter, because we've developed bad habits. We've, taken bad substances. We've gotten, on computers and on cell phones. We've had stressful lives, and we've held this tension in our bodies for so long. So, it's about time we came up with a way to train adults who are athletes versus children. And so much dance training, so much training for athletes. And even as a physical therapist, I see this is geared towards the child athlete or the high school athlete or the college athlete. But what about, when you're 30, 40, 50, 60, and even 70, and you want to continue what you love to do? There's not a lot of literature, and there's not a lot of systems to really address the adult athletes, where the children, they do something and their body just handles the movement. It just sinks in. The joints are pliable. The adults are not the same. So that's why I said the adult athlete and the specialized training, I call them prequel steps. So just like a movie like Star Wars that has a prequel, these are the steps before. And sometimes I give the example of posture. When we have pain, and have you ever had pain here? Have you ever had pain here or pain here? Usually what everybody says on the internet is we just need to sit up straighter. We just need to put our shoulders down and back. But if your body is not connected in a way that allows you to put your shoulders down and back appropriately, you start to get pain and dysfunction in your shoulders even more. And even if you make them stronger, a lot of times you're still not completely solving the problem because the strength is helping, but the movements in the system and the way you're going about it is not bad, but is not optimal. And so to optimize, we have to include the fascia. And so there's some steps we need to do before we just think about bringing our shoulders down and back, to really get those knots out of our shoulders and get that stress out and like de-wrinkle that fascia. So that's what I'm all about. That's what I want to talk about. And that's what I tried to bring you on as just like a very kind of short, sweet, but also complex journey of how we can think about getting there. So in the system, we have activations, drills, and trials. I'm going to talk about the spine, how it's so important, but we're not actually training it in the way we need to. We need to do the prequel steps to the spine, which is a series of the most important joints in our body. And I put this quote in here because I heard it the other day, actually on a Netflix special, but it was, I loved it. And I thought it really explained why it is that I'm doing this work. And it's, when you come across something that is profound, then you have to change yourself. When you come across something that is profound, then you have to change yourself. And so, I want to be a guide and an encourager of the exploration of people's bodies. And that's essentially what I've been doing as a physical therapist for the last 10 years. However, I find I do physical therapy a little bit differently than a lot of physical therapists because of my ideas and this new science of fascia that I feel like is groundbreaking. So this is something profound. And so I've had to change myself around it. And so I hope that you can start to see the profoundness, and I want to start to demonstrate what that is, what's that been to me, and what that can be to you too, to break through those barriers. And I hate to be salesy. I hate to be out here selling things, but I realize how much time and effort this takes and how much amount of time it takes to spread a vision, to create a movement, to be passionate about something, and to explain it in order to get other people on board. And that is what I'm all about. And so I want to jumpstart your dance anatomy process. And I'd like to shorten the time that it takes. I'd like to problem solve the pitfalls, make it easy for you, use my track record of knowledge and training with thousands of clients. If you go to my Facebook professional page of Dr. Romina McCullough PT, I have testimonial after testimonial after testimonial of people that I work with that have just, they get results. And so I'm at the point in my career where I'm confident that I can get you results. And so coming soon, I want your suggestions. I'd love to hear, like, what areas of the body do you want to work on? They are all connected, but what is most important for you to focus on? And then what we talked about today was the hand to shoulder connection. And if you want to get deeper into that, I did a whole month course in October. And I have testimonials on that posted as well. It was 4 master classes and both real. And I'm going to stop that for now because I have that. I didn't want that sound to interfere. And I have that video on my page. But it's taking a journey and into the body. And so this video kind of highlights different parts of talking about anatomy. We go through courses. I have like some time where we practice together and we try it. I incorporate it into drills, and it was a beautiful class. I really enjoyed the month of October, and I want to share it with those who need a spine awakening. And who it's really for and what it really does is really starts you to become aware of the small muscles in your spine, which are the stabilizing muscles, which control the little, they're called facet joints, and the ones in the middle and the ones on the side, and the way they move on each other. And it's starting to get you aware of all the little joints and how the whole spine moves together. I don't just talk about one at a time. I talk about maybe the neck or the pelvis, but then I talk about how do you connect them together? How do you connect them together? That is the most important thing, because the spine is a series of joints, but the series of joints needs to work together, because otherwise, what's the point? So this goes through that, and then how the rib cage works with those series of joints to move around it. How can you use our arms and our legs and some small piece of equipment that you probably have in order to do it. And so I really had a joy teaching it. And so I'm offering it. I sold it initially for $2.99. I'm offering it for $97. So it's a great value. I'm only offering it for the next 4 days, and I'm going to leave the link in the comments. So also, if you live in DFW, I've been seeing patients in person and online, one-on-one. So if you feel like you need that one-on-one attention, I'd be so happy to work with you. I love working with people. My passion is to make your body better. So the website is www.injuryfreedom.com, and you have to put the www in there for this website. So just FYI. And so I just wanted to say thank you for allowing me to share this mental and physical space with you tonight. And it's my pleasure to be able to present to you. So thank you very much. And I hope that you've learned something and you can take away something from tonight's webinar. And I will offer a replay for those who missed out or for those who missed portions of it. So thank you very much and have a good night, guys. Bye.
Feel in your hand. So you can tuck that thumb in if you want. Of our nerve endings are in our brain.